How is it going, everyone? Hope your day is going great. I welcome you to another episode of Forward Thinking Founders. Before we get into today's episode, I had a quick question for you. If you're listening, have you ever been an investor anymore? Have you ever put money into an entity and with an expectation of a return? Some of you, not all of you. Well, now is your chance. You can be an angel investor in Forward Thinking Founders, the podcast. And no, you don't got to be an accredited investor. All you need is $10 a month or $100 a year. Now, what does this get you? What's your ROI? Well, it gets you a ton. First of all, you don't have to listen to me pitch you this every single episode, so you bypass all ads and all future sponsorships. You get premium content as you get the full episode of every single episode that comes out, as many of them are kind of blocked halfway through. You get access to our online community where you get to see access to the episodes sometimes days before or weeks before they hit the internet. And lastly, you get access to our in-person meetups, which we are having the first one in San Francisco in late January. So if all of that sounds groovy and you want to help out a fellow creator, which is me, and help me kind of invest into this podcast to make it better, then please become an angel investor in Forward Thinking Founders. How do you do it? You can find our terms and our sheet and all of our documentation at glow.fm/F20R. That's glow.fm/F20R. It is best done on mobile, and I look forward to having you as a supporter. Now let's get into today's episode. Run it! All right, how is it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Forward Thinking Founders, where we're talking to founders about their companies, their visions for the future, and how the two collide. Today, I'm very excited to be talking to Nathan Ganser, who is the creator, the co-founder of Nat Bot. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt. Excited to be there and excited to hear your questions. I
am excited to have you on. It's I feel like we had some 100% because of me. We had it took a little second to get you on the air and have this conversation, but now that you're here, I'm super stoked to dive deep into what you're working on. And with that, let's just kind of dive right in. For people that don't know, what are you working on? What is NatBot?
So I'm working on a personal CRM. Basically, we are trying to solve a problem, but we're not completely sure what the problem is. Realistically, we are in the same way you use a calendar to help you remember your friends' birthdays. We're trying to bring this to the next level and help you not only remember birthdays, but basically remember people and like people you might lose touch with, and trying to do this in a smart way where you don't have to do any manual data input, and trying to build some smart AI to help you do that.
So ultimately what I'm wondering is, this is a problem that a lot of people want solved. And as you know, there's tons of people that are tackling it. So what's your thesis on the market, or your thesis on how to wedge into the market?
Yeah, you're definitely right on this. As you mentioned, on Twitter, it keeps coming up. You have some other popular VC who just says, I just need a personal CRM. And every time I'm like, yeah, right, actually, we need to get back to this. And we're still figuring it out. We have no clue. Realistically, from our user research, ideally what people would want is just a tool that does the job for you, that literally, we all want the easy solution. You just like buy this SaaS tool and you're in touch with all the people that matter to you. But obviously it's not that easy. Also, most social networks, social medias, they hate sharing data or giving it away to anyone else. So it's definitely not easy to gather all the contact data our users have. So there are like tons of different angles. What we have tried to do is get as narrow as possible, get rid of everything that we cannot really solve. So like LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever, what is encrypted, we don't touch. And we just focus on Gmail for now because they have a solid API. And that's where actually most of the valuable contacts are. They're in your emails. And so that's what we're focusing on.
So let's go into how it works. If I was to become a user and let's go through our workflow. So I sign up for NatBot, and is it add everyone that I've ever emailed into like a list, or I'm not sure. Take me through a workflow if I was to sign up.
So super simple, just a web app. You sign up, and what we will ask you to do is to sync your Gmail data. So either through you actually give us all the access to your Gmail data, or you kind of give us access only to the Gmail metadata. We're still figuring this out. But then what we do is we go through all your email interactions, we look at your contacts, and we figure out like who you're closely in touch with, who you're losing touch with, who are just spam and you don't care about, and trying to building kind of a big map of your network. And then we put this into a list and we tell you like, these are the people you're losing touch with, and these are the people you're in touch with. And we do this through a closeness indicator that we're computing. And so you just see the list of all your contacts ranked by how close you are to them. And so the goal is that you just scroll through the list and you're like, oh yeah, right, this guy. And you just reach out again.
So I've emailed a ton of people in my life, and I'm sure, I'm young, so I'm sure there's other people that have emailed 20 times more people than me, right? And like people later in their career, more experience, etc. I guess what I'm most interested in is the intake. When someone signs up and they get a list, how do you handle the overwhelming feeling of, holy shit, I have 20,000, I have 50,000 people that are on this, and I'm supposed to rank them? Is it that, or how do you think about that? I can't get past that in my head.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of how it was in the beginning. And to be fair, like the algorithm has changed a lot. We keep improving it, realizing that this is not working, this edge case is not working. So realistically, you might have reached out to 20,000 people in your life, but there are only so many people you're still actually in touch with, and only so many people with whom you're losing touch with, but you're not completely out of sync. Obviously, all the people you're out of sync with, we just don't care. We forget, because the guy who you haven't reached out to since 3 years, it's done. What we're interested in is where you're kind of losing touch, but it's not completely the end yet. And so that's usually maybe 200 people or something like this.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. That's a really good clarification. So do you know that based on, like, do you have data on the last time I emailed someone and like the distance between times that I've emailed? Is that data you have access to?
Yeah. So we don't
awesome.
look at the content of email. We look at all the interactions you had, when, kind of the average between two interactions, when was the last time you interacted, and so trying to get us narrow.
And do you have a threshold, or does the user set the threshold? What I mean by that is, let's say I want to. This is actually kind of interesting now that I'm thinking through it. Like if I signed up and I said, I'm really trying to keep in touch with all the VCs that I've talked to in the last year that responded once. Like if they never responded, I don't want to talk to them. But if we had one back and forth, like I want to chat with them, I guess would I be able to do that? Or if not, like how? I mean, I want to dive into this algorithm or this whatever it is, because I think that's really interesting how you can identify people that are kind of fading away but not gone. That's I think a sweet spot.
Yeah, it's super complicated, and the algorithm is super complex. And to be fair, it's also partly literally hard coded. So you have a lot of if that then this.
Of course.
Especially like some basic stuff is basically you need to have emailed him, and he has to have emailed you first. We must be sure that there is like a two-way thing. And then we look at so many data points, but the mains are really like, when was the last time you interacted?
Yep.
The further this is away, the worse. Then kind of it's getting bad. But then it depends on the average between two interactions, right? Let's say there is a guy that you met him 10 years ago. You send maybe 2 emails per year, and you're in touch. Everything is fine. Well, we are able to understand this. Whereas if someone else, like you send him 1 email per day during a week, and then nothing anymore, and then with this guy, after a few weeks, you can be out of sync. And so that's something we're trying to understand too. But obviously, like, I think our main value proposition will be this algorithm, and it's a huge challenge, and we're definitely still working on it. So it's not perfect at all.
Of course, yeah. It's I feel like you'll always be improving it, even once it is really good, right? And I'm sure it's already good now. It's just always about improving. I'm interested. What is the skill set of you and your co-founder? Like, what does it take to work on this this algorithm, this unique problem that no one has solved yet. And I feel like the company who solves it, it will be some sort of a land grab. And I feel like it's not a market where one wins. Like, I don't think it's necessarily like that in the case of like Uber or Lyft, but it's one that like when one catches on, it's going to spread like wildfire. So I'm curious, like, what's your skill set, technically or non-technically, to be able to like build Nat Bot and push it into the masses?
So we're both actually 19, so pretty young, I'd say. I actually, I'm doing uni right now, but that's actually kind of a side thing to finance the startup, because my uni is financing, is giving us grants. But I was working last year for startups in London and Berlin, and that's where I kind of acquired my like marketing, business development skills. And so I'm actually not technical. I'm actually studying computer science to catch up. But it's not what I do. I'm actually the one building the algorithm, because that's something I can do. I can play around in Python. But my co-founder is actually the guy who is building the web app.
Wait, I need to break something up there. You said you're not technical, but you're the one building the algorithm?
Yeah, because
excuse me for my like. I'm not technical either. So could you please explain to me how you consider yourself not technical, but like you're building an algorithm? Like, I guess I don't even know what an algorithm truly is. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get your point. I mean, like, I'm definitely more technical than the average, let's say that way, but I'm really like a no-code technical guy. I mean, you were mentioning the guy from Webflow. It's basically this kind of non-technical. Like, I'm able to build simple things. I build all my websites using some tools. And so the algorithm is basically just a complex spreadsheet. That's basically what it is. And so my co-founder, he just checks out the spreadsheet and he rebuilds this. So
I want to dive into this, because you're literally the prime example of like you nonchalantly say, oh, like, I'm building the algorithm, I'm doing this, but then you say you're doing it with no code, and it shows the power that no code technologies give to anyone in the world to build almost whatever the hell they want. Like, I'm curious what if you don't mind sharing your like no code stack, what specific tools are you using? How'd you pick those? And how'd you get into, like, were you always a no code believer, or did it take some convincing from just the market?
Well, look, you're there trying to build a software or a web app, whatever, and you don't know how to code, and you're stuck. And so basically you have to find a solution. And so, I mean, I ended up playing a lot with chatbots, because that's basically the closest you can get to a super complex web app, but without having to build the whole back end and front end, because chatbots are just super simple. So like a Facebook Messenger chatbot. But still, like, there is a huge gap between what I can do and what my co-founder can do. And I mean, we're doing a pretty good job at bridging the two, but I'm still super limited. I mean, like, I can make any kind of website that just looks good, but it's never going to be a web app. So,
yeah, definitely. There are some no-code tools that are pretty advanced that I'm starting to dive into. Obviously, there's Webflow for front end and kind of ish back end, but not really. But then you get the ones that I feel like Webflow is going to move into the area I'm about to talk about. Then you got back end, where you got like Adalo and Bubble and Boundless. And I actually, for my company, the company that I'm working for right now, I'm trying to convince the CEO to let me build something out in Boundless, because it's like, will take not much time. But do you see, you mentioned that you're 19. I'm very intrigued. Like, I sometimes I consider myself like fairly young, but I'm also not at all. Like, I'm 26. There's a whole generation from like 10-year-olds all the way to graduates that probably see way more stuff, than I do, because they're in it, right? So I'm kind of curious, what are trends that you're seeing with your peers in your generation that you think, as Peter Thiel would say, are like secrets, like things that you do or you use or no code or whatever? Like, what are you seeing in your talented friends that may not be obvious to the rest of the world, if you're open to sharing?
Well, honestly, that's a tough question. And let me think. It's actually like what I am starting to like see more and more is that we're like getting away from whatever news feeds or social media stuff, trying to like get time back and using more tools that basically like one thing I'm starting to hate more and more, and actually most of my friends too, is any app that has a feed, like something that you can just scroll and scroll, because it's just you lose so much time and it's addictive. And so like a nice trend is kind of making cool things, but they're like a game, so you're incentivized to do this. Pioneer is an amazing example of this, but without actually taking all of your time or like making money using your attention or whatever. So trying to make games that are fun to play, but they're not really games, if you see what I mean.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Superhuman does this too. It not as much gamification as Pioneer, but it's this like use gaming or gamification, ideas or game theory or whatever to make something more efficient, make use of a product better. Versus just taking out your phone, laying down on Twitter, and just like, the sad thing is I enjoy it, and I will probably continue to do it because it's just what I've done for the last however many years. But like, no, it's not a good use of time. I wish I did it. It's just like this site. It's like, I'm sure. I mean, I'll be honest. I do get a lot of value out of Twitter. It's where I find a lot of my guests. It's where I feel like I've gotten like broken into San Francisco literally just through Twitter. But I don't know. What was your experience like with Pioneer? Like, how'd you hear about it? Because I know you're not based in SF. So one, how'd you hear about it? And two, what has it been like? Going through the experience. And I think winning, right? Did you become a Pioneer?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it has honestly been great. I think it's one of the best examples of a gamified platform. And I actually don't remember how I found out about it. I think I was doing this YC startup school, and someone there mentioned Pioneer, I think. And so I just signed up. And obviously in the beginning, you're like, yeah, okay. But then there is a leaderboard, so you always want to get to the top of the leaderboard, right? And so it just becomes this game. And I think we played for 15 weeks. Just every week, you just submit your progress. You see other people progressing, and it's pretty cool. And you're like, oh, fuck, he did all this, and I literally did nothing this week. And well, one day you just get an email. Hey, you won. Keep it a secret for now, but you won. And then you look at the offer, you see like all the stuff you win, and you're like, I mean, we have 100K in AWS credits, right? And this is beautiful. It's a huge gift. So, what experience?
If you're open to diving in, something I want to explore and something I've become very interested in recently is the fact that without Pioneer, on my end, there's some people, there's some products, there's some that I even use, and some people I've had on my podcast I never would have heard of. And that is the case with, I think it's the thing that Pioneer set out to do. They set out to go out and find these, I think, hidden geniuses, or however Daniel phrases it, around the world, and give them the resources they need. Like, I'm curious, do you see other, what do you just think about that topic? Like there are millions of geniuses out there. They don't live in San Francisco. They don't live in New York. And right now, from what I know, there's pretty much two things trying to identify these people. There's Pioneer, and then there's forward-thinking founders. My goal is to try find these people. But do you see more of these kind of vehicles to find unproven talent out there, or is it still a little bit the wild, wild west? In your opinion, as you went through Pioneer.
No, I mean, like the sign is very clear. When you have a guy who works at YC and who leaves YC to start his own accelerator, incubator, then there is something wrong. And it's completely right. I mean, like YC is basically, that's what they try to do, but it's not scalable. And also they just have this application process that is whatever they do, it will be subjective, and it's not, you cannot actually get the right people. And so like what Pioneer, my guess is Pioneer will become the next YC and be much bigger and much better, because they're so scalable, super cheap, and they just get a share in any potentially good business in the world. So they will definitely catch the next Airbnb.
Yeah, I think that's interesting you mentioned that, because YC is at a place where they're so big and so good that they have to reject a bunch of $100 million companies, billion-dollar companies, not because they're bad pickers, but because they got to find the $10 billion companies and the $50 billion companies. But this, I don't know how well that's gonna play out. I'm definitely biased. I've been rejected several times. And it's interesting because I know a lot of very talented founders that are on the billion-dollar track that got rejected too. And I'm just like, is Pioneer going to be the one to not make any mistakes because they're using more of like a data approach versus kind of a who do you know, or just like, are you really, really far along, or are you from Facebook? I don't know.
The thing is, I mean, the trend you see is it started with like big VC companies, right, who invest in big companies, and then we have YC and more like kind of other angels and who start to invest early, and Pioneer is basically going even further and basically cutting them out and starting as early as you can. You can't get much earlier than Pioneer. And then they just give you what you need. It's not a lot. It's super cheap for them, and they have the right to invest with you once you raise. So it's the best deal ever. And they're so in the right time. The timing for Pioneer is so right. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what's happening.
Yeah, you're definitely. I feel like an evangelist for them, as you should be. You went through the accelerator or tournament or whatever, and you won, and now you understand the power of it. I'd like to see more. It would be really cool if Pioneer and forward thinking founder has got like a shit ton of competition, because it literally means the people that benefit from that are the hidden geniuses out in Uruguay, in Chad, in Israel, and everyone needs consensus. Like, oh, like you think that person's cool? You think that person's cool? Okay, cool. Let's invest. It's like, no, like conviction. Anyways, I feel like my next. Sorry, I'm like ranting right now. I apologize. Let's go back. Let's go. I do that sometimes. Let's go back to what you're working on. So, what's the big play? I mean, as you know, and as mentioned, there's a lot of people working on this. No one's figured it out. If you're the company to figure it out, if Nat is it, what? 2 questions. 1, how big could it be and what could it become? And 2, if you're even thinking about this yet, although it might be a little too early, how do you think about strategy? Just positioning yourself in a strategic way that allows you to win with network effects or moats or whatever. Just interested to hear how you think about any of that.
Yeah, I mean, so we're building a personal CRM. There is no real company that has built this yet and that is actually huge or that is making a lot of money. There is a huge graveyard, actually. There's tons of personal CRMs who died. So no one has figured it out. We're definitely not the biggest team. We're definitely not the most well-funded. So I'll be honest, we'll need a lot of luck. But besides this, it's clear that one, we need a viral growth tool. Like what I love, the example I love is Calendly. These guys have built a product that without them doing anything, it will just grow, get bigger, and get shared because it's the way the product is built. So we definitely want to take something from them and add it into our product. And what else? Like viral growth. And yeah, if you just build something people love, then I think that's a pretty good start. But otherwise, that the strategy stops there, realistically.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. Do you think people put too much emphasis or value on strategy on the early days, and they spend too much time thinking about like competitors? I don't know. Well, how do you think about competitors? There's other people building stuff. You mentioned like someone on the podcast came on and was talking about a CRM. So do you think about them at all, or are you just focused on your user? Do you collaborate with competitors? Like, how do you think about everyone else trying to build a similar thing?
Well, I'm actually really in a collaboration mood. I actually reached out to all of them because, I mean, at first my idea is I need a personal CRM, but it's so much easier if someone else builds it, right? And I can just use this one. I don't have to build it myself. That's the easy solution. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. So I'm like, okay, well, then I'll do it myself. I reached out to all of them. Definitely we had some chats. To be fair, most of them are kind of scared. They're like, oh, he's building a personal CRM too, and they tend to not reply a lot or be like very cold or like, yeah, I can't tell you anything about this. But yeah, no, we don't look at what others are doing. Definitely, like once a month, I try to search for a personal CRM on Google and try to find out what's going on, because maybe they figure something out. I mean, the most popular other personal CRM that is coming up is the guy from YC, Kevin, with Dex. And he has taken a different approach, kind of trying to build an integration for everything, scraping data from Facebook, LinkedIn. I have no clue. Like my guess is that this is wrong. This is not going to work. That it's maybe not the main value proposition, but maybe it is. So we're definitely, it's crazy to see how far we are already from each other at this early stage. So give us a year and we'll be building a completely different product.
I almost have a feeling that in a decade, if and when Nat Bot takes off and becomes one of the companies and not the company, I feel like one of the big competitors in this space will be Superhuman. I feel like within at a certain point, I can see them getting to this space, not first and not second and not 10th, but I don't know. I see this space really heating up, and but it's only the early days. I guess another question I have for you is, why did you decide to start Nat Bot when you started it? I feel like the personal CRM question has been around for quite a while. Was there a timing thing, or was it just a decision like, fuck it, we're doing it today? How did you decide on the time?
It was definitely a kind of a let's do it now. Literally, we're still doing it part-time, right? I mean, I'm studying, and my co-founder, he's doing freelancing on the side to earn his living. But this feeling is growing and growing that it's the right time. I was chatting with Daniel from Pioneer like 2 days ago, and he was like, man, it's now or never, and it's not going to work if you do it part-time. So there is definitely a sense of urgency and that we need to do it now. What you said with Superhuman is very interesting, because I love their values. They're basically telling you, we can help you be better at emailing, but it's not an easy fix. All right, we can give you the tool, but you have to learn and spend some time and learn and get better. And that's kind of the values we want to build too. Like we can help you, but we're not an easy fix, and you have to give us something too. It's a two-sided thing.
What is the top 1 to 3 feature requests that you get? Or if you don't get like so many feature requests, what are the features that you want to build next? Not in a decade, not dream features, but like what's on the roadmap in the short term?
Yeah, we get quite a lot of feature requests. Honestly, we don't listen to them at all, because our users have no clue neither. As I said, honestly, ideally they would want an easy fix, but that's not something we can build. And usually they want features that actually won't help them. So a lot of feature requests are basically more integrations. And we're like, yeah, but how does it help you, right? I mean, we can sync your data from Facebook, we can scrape data from LinkedIn, but still, we need data, we need core data, and that's something you mostly get only through Gmail. And the features we want to implement, we're actually thinking very far already, but because you see the potential. But the data you get, knowing who knows who, this is super powerful. And so we were thinking of one idea would be kind of go into a LinkedIn style, where we can tell you, oh, this guy, he also knows this guy, and this guy is also someone and kind of helping you expand your network, not only staying in touch, but actually proactively growing it. And the other part is definitely similar to Pioneer, just adding more gamification, making it fun, having, 10 tasks, like not 100. So it's not like a news feed, just 10 tasks per day. And then you leave. And these tasks are like, write a note of this guy. Like making it fun and enjoyable. And it's a game, and you can win the game by staying in touch with your friends and professional network.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Can you describe, I don't know how to phrase this question. What is the most obvious but useless feature request? Like a specific feature request that someone gives you, like one that you get. Here we go. One that you get the most that you put the least weight in, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I would say it's integrate with Facebook. I think that's literally the most useless feature. First of all, because it's quite complex technically. And then even if you get all the Facebook data, you just get the names without the emails, and you still cannot connect them together. And you have to do some random guessing of, this guy has the same name than this guy, so maybe it's the same. So I put them together, I merge them, but super risky and yeah, no. So
I don't have a feature request, but I just have a thought that you've I'm sure I've already thought about. But I think if you are the company to build the algorithm that enables me to look at any channel, whether it's to start Gmail or just email, but eventually maybe even like Twitter, Facebook DMs, whatever, and it just maps. Hey, you got this many people you haven't talked to in 7 years. You got this many people that are like, you're trying to, you sent them outbound messages, they didn't respond. They sent you inbound, you didn't respond. I feel like if you can just get super techie and build that machine and then plug that machine into whatever the hell you want, I can see that. Obviously, I can probably see any solution at this point because there's so many ways you can cut it. But yeah. I do think that like that gives you also a technology moat. That gives you like that is not something people can just replicate. So if I was a VC, which I'm not, but if I was, I feel like that's a very product centric. It's a very like product forward kind of strategy and idea versus distribution, which some could say that's stupid. You got to build, all in distribution. I think this is one of these things where like you got to get the product really right. Like it has to be great, and then if it's great, people talk about it.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, because we are so small, we can get easily copied. So even if we're super smart and build something great, it takes one day for another competitor to build the same. So we're definitely trying to find something that makes us unique and that someone cannot copy. And this algorithm, that's a good start, yeah.
Well, you already have a giant moat in that you came onto the podcast, so you're going to be way ahead of that. Well, I know that you said you had a hard stop, so I will wrap it up and ask the last question of the day. You are in the earliest stages of starting a company. It's the most exciting stages. It's the most horrifying stages, and I'm sure you can empathize with like sometimes the founders just need some help, and you got all these people listening that want to help. And they're waiting for this question. So my question to you is, how can the listeners, how can the forward-thinking founders community, and how can I help you with what you're working on and push the needle forward, with that?
Well, Matt, I love the question. Awesome. Realistically, one thing I have it. There are so many awesome tools out there that can help us as a company be better. Maybe it's some SaaS productivity tool. Maybe it's, I don't know. But I know that I don't know all the tools and I don't have the time to go through Product Hunt, the whole thing. So what I would love from your listeners is if they go on our website and they know about a tool that might potentially help us, then they can just email me this tool and I will give them the premium access to Nat Bot forever, for life. Just because there are some tools that can so change our whole life. We were speaking about NoCode Tools, and there are definitely great tools I'm not aware of, and I would love to know about them.
All right. Well, that's a good ask, because I feel like the biggest chunk of people listening on the podcast they're all based in San Francisco, like the biggest chunk. And I'm making the assumption that if they're in San Francisco and they're listening to this podcast, they're all techies, so they'll probably be able to help. So great. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot that I didn't know already about personal CRMs and how to think about them. And I think your approach is definitely different, and it sounds interesting. And keep me posted, because I think it's cool. So thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
All right, there you have it. There is another way to build a personal CRM, one of dozens, as you now know. If you got some value out of that podcast, if you enjoyed learning about the product, if you thought you have a new angle on the market, please hit me up with a rating on iTunes, or better yet, in addition, become an angel investor of the podcast. For $10 a month or $100 a year, you get ad-free content, you get premium content that isn't available on the major RSS feed, you get access to our online community, and you get access to our in real life meetups, which the first one is going to be late January, and I'm inviting every guest I've ever had on. It's going to be great. It's only $10 a month, so if you really want to support, I hope you become an angel investor at glow.fm/F20R. With that, I will see you tomorrow. Peace.